Good evening, everybody. Matt, Derrick, Chiefs Digest here. Only 7:09, so I don't think that's quite a record yet for my late arrival. Sorry about that, everybody. Just got back into Kansas City this afternoon from Las Vegas. A little bit of an early departure Tuesday morning, finally getting back, but obviously a trip well worth it. Very exciting game, an amazing Super Bowl. Um, One of the best. I mean, for me, I know some would say they would like to have a more lively first half, maybe not quite the defensive battle. Don't necessarily need to see a team falling down by 10 points, but the second half and the overtime was just absolutely amazing. I mean, I thought it was everything, just as much as last year's game against the Eagles, as exciting as that was and high scoring as that was. I thought this one was just as exciting in so many different ways too. It was, and obviously the finish was absolutely amazing. Can't wait to dive into it. Our good friend Nick Jacobs is going to be popping in here in a little bit to join the conversation, help answer some of your questions. I'm sure, probably some of the most recent developments, like Nick Allegretti, I can see that in there right now. Um, I know those questions will come up, so I don't even know if I'll give much of a State of the Union speech or anything of that nature. Right, just hop onto the questions and let everything come as it is. Um, Hoping everybody's in a good mood. Hope that I mean, we'll definitely ask some questions about the future. Although Nick will probably get a little prickly. Ask, he's definitely still wanting to enjoy and savor the Super Bowl, and I hope you all are as well, because this just doesn't happen very often. I was talking with one of my colleagues around the country earlier today, and they just said and reminded me once again to savor it, because this person's been in media for, I think, almost 30 years. None of the teams that they've covered ever got to win a Super Bowl, so has never covered a Super Bowl team and Super Bowl winning team. And so you can't take it for granted. And I'm certainly not, because this has been an incredible experience. When I managed to join the beat on this team and start covering the Chiefs in 2016, it's been unparalleled success for this organization. So and given the fact that I grew up watching this team, I am well familiar with its foibles and failures in the past. So I completely get, and I encourage you as well. I mean, enjoy this. I mean, savor it absolutely, because this is not normal. This is an absolutely amazing streak that this team is on. So we'll just pop right on into it. Brandon, in first. Love it. What surprised you the most about this season and the Super Bowl victory? Good question. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, what surprised me the most about this season was more so than the how well the defense played. I mean, I can't say that I saw that coming, but the defense continuing to take steps and being a great defense doesn't surprise me. I mean, I felt like that Spags had this in him eventually to have a defense like this. Can't say that I saw it happening this year, or certainly to the level of success that they had. But that's even number two. I mean, because the thing that surprised me most about this season was just the inconsistency of the offense, the struggles that it went through for really, I mean, most of the season. There's only really a couple of games that you can say were really good games. The Chargers game earlier in the season was a good one. I mean, there was nothing wrong with the performance against the Bears. It was just happened to be against the Bears, who weren't a very good team. They had a few other, outings that were okay, but just the inconsistent nature of the offense, the drops, the mistakes, the penalties, that surprised me, because I did not expect this team to have such an undisciplined streak in it. It's just not like Andy Reid. So there's no doubt. I mean, to me, the struggles that this offense went through at times this season was number one with a bullet for me. The defense, while a nice, pleasant surprise, was number two. I mean, that I think was more predictable than the offense struggling. I mean, this never thought that this offense would struggle like this. So that's it for me. Sharon, let's talk roster building, please. Jones or Snead, free agent wide receiver? If so, who? First pick in the draft, position versus player. You want to get all into it, Sharon? That's fine. I like that. Excuse me. We can get into it. We can get into it. It's not a problem. And Nick and I will be diving into all of these topics a lot more in the off season. We've got some plans, between here and 41 is the mic, to really discuss some of these questions really in depth. So we might skim over the top of it tonight, but rest assured, here in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about some of these very, very specifically. So Jones or Snead, I mean, you want both. I mean, that's the case. But here's the thing. I mean, even if it's one or the other, I can make a compelling case for both. I think you pay Chris Jones because Chris Jones is a unicorn. There's not many like him. You're not going to replace Chris Jones with another Chris Jones. Whomever replaces Chris Jones is probably going to be a significant step downward. That's just the reality of it, so I think that makes it a fairly easy one, in the positive Chris Jones column. And for L'Jarius Sneed, I mean, one of the best corners in the league, most underrated corners in the league, plays very physical. You can replace L'Jarius Sneed. You won't necessarily replace his leadership. You're not going to replace his ferocity, his aggressiveness. You're not going to replace his ability to play against the run. The Chiefs have some really good corners, so I don't think that the drop-off from L'Jarius Sneed to whom they would replace him with will be as steep. I mean, especially because, you think about it, who would you be replacing L'Jarius Sneed with? Well, technically, you'd be replacing him with Trent McDuffie. I mean, McDuffie would move on up. It's then who is now your 2 and your 3 corners. And Chiefs got a lot of possibilities. I'm not even ruling out the possibility Shamari Connor might end up being a corner of such, because, I mean, the way that he played a nickel this year, I mean, I think you'd absolutely let him play any position and keep him at safety just for his flexibility. But as far as, being somebody who can play inside, I've been really impressed with that. I mean, I think he can do it. So, but then you've got Jalen Watson, you've got Joshua Williams, you've got Najee Johnson coming back. This team and this coaching staff has shown an ability to go out and get talent late in the draft, even undrafted guys, and coach them up. So, I don't worry as much about that position. So that's the case, for and against Snead. There's also a case again, and there's lots of different elements to it as well. I mean, the downside to Jones is that he's going to be entering his 30s. He's going to want a lot more money than L'Jarius Snead does. I think that L'Jarius might be willing to come back on maybe a little bit below market rate, talking around the league. I think the belief is generally that L'Jarius might be able to get around $18 million on the open market. If the Chiefs could get him for a little bit less than that, if there's a hometown discount possibility, I mean, I think that would be ideal, but you can't always bank on that and count on that. But there's a real catch-22 to put on both sides. I mean, like I said, Chris is a unicorn. There's just nobody else like him, but he's entering his 30s. There's a really good chance statistically of a drop off in his performance significantly. He's going to cost a little more than L'Jarius. That's a factor as well. I mean, that's what's going to make keeping both those guys so difficult. With L'Jarius, there's going to be concern about his knee. He was essentially on the injury report with that knee almost the entire season. It kept him out of entirely a training camp for the most part. I mean, that's the concern, is that there's something in that knee that's going to be a long-term issue. And if it does pop up again, is it something that could keep him out for a while? So Chiefs know the medicals more than the rest of us. And both Chris and L'Jarius have medical concerns, age concerns for Chris. None of those with L'Jarius. He's still a very young player. Like I said, Sharon, I have a hard time choosing, and it's not my job to choose. I mean, I'm not trying to squirrel out here or anything, but this, I think, is going to be one of the more difficult questions that this organization is going to face. Obviously, they can keep one of them for sure by simply franchise tagging them. Which one do you tag? I mean, it comes down to which one do you think you can pay and want to pay. There's no guarantee that if you franchise tag Chris, that based on last off season, that you can get a deal done. So, does that make it easier that if you can't get a deal done with L'Jarius to go ahead and tag him? That may end up being what happens. So we'll see, but that's tough. Now, free agent receiver. I mean, and a lot of this is going to be based on what, I did learn from some of my conversations during Super Bowl week in Las Vegas. There's going to be more to come. I mean, we're going to hear from Brett Veach, obviously at the Combine, and Andy Reid. There will be a lot more reporting in the weeks and months to come before the draft and free agency, and starts in mid-March. So we still got a month before the beginning of the new league year and free agency pops up. So a lot could still change as far as what the Chiefs have resource-wise. But I don't get the sense right now that the Chiefs are going to be in the market for what I would call an A-list wide receiver. I mean, I think that it's more likely that they're going to look more modestly cost receivers. I think there's going to be more of a premium placed on finding a receiver with the fit that they want, that really does what they need. And I think fit and scheme are going to factor in any receiver that they bring in over anything else. I mean, not to say performance isn't one of those things, but how that receiver fits in, whether they fit in with the Chiefs scheme, their comfort level, and maybe a West Coast offense, what their experience has been. I think that's going to matter a lot more than anything else. I mean, what you can do from a chemistry standpoint. I mean, I think they'll do that. That's why I think it's more likely that, and cost as well. I mean, the Chiefs will have some calorie cap space available, but they got a lot of needs this season and a lot of things to get done. And L'Jarius and Chris Jones, even though you can finagle the cap to make those deals work, they're still going to take some cap resources this year. So now who? That's the $1 million question. I mean, there's quite a few, and Nick and I were talking about this the other day, and and we're gonna go in depth. We're gonna have a pod where we are entirely just going to go through the free agent market and really examine who's there and what the possibilities are for a few different players. But I can give you some of the names at least I'm thinking about that at least the Chiefs might be kicking the tires on. And like I said, from just a standpoint, hey, Gabe Davis, with the Bills is going to be a free agent, and that to me is something I think that you might be interested in. Just from a cost standpoint, I don't think he would be, breaking the bank, and I think he does give the Chiefs something that they don't have right now. So that's the kind of player that interests me. There's a ton of others. Let's see. I'm going to pull up the list here so I can remember things. Remember, I'm still on Vegas time, so even though it's only 5:22 to me, I think my body after my 3:20 a.m. wake up call might still be a little on the shy side there. But I mean, I would not be as big on some names like a Marquise Brown or obviously a Calvin Ridley. I mean, I think there's a little bit too much baggage there. Some questions. Ray McLeod's name was thrown out. I mean, that would obviously be a guy that could be a return guy for you. Whatever happens in Cincinnati, I mean, that would probably be the only exception. T. Higgins hits the market. If somehow Jamar Chase, becomes available, you have a conversation about those. I just think that it's a hard, difficult thing for the Chiefs to get done. I'm trying to looking through here and seeing there's a few. I mean, hey, some old friends are going to be available. Chris Conley just looked really good for the 49ers. Looked like he was trying to prove the Chiefs wrong about him. I don't think that's the case. I mean, I think the Chiefs would go much younger, and that's the reason why a guy like Davis pops out to me, because that's the youngest potential free agent that's out there. Juwan Jennings, I know, was a guy that Nick and I talked about that, and obviously he had a great game against the Chiefs the other night, so that's a heck of kind of an audition if you want. But those are the players that are in kind of my mind. I mean, I feel like that the guys at the top, and especially some of the older players, if that's a Mike Evans, Odell Beckham Jr., those I think are a little bit trickier, and obviously McColl's a possibility. He could be back. Braxton Berrios is maybe an interesting option, but from a production standpoint, Michael Pittman Jr., I mean, I think is going to demand a lot. I mean, I think he could, he has coming off 1,000-yard season. I mean, I think that's a guy who's going to get a big payday. So I think that would be more difficult, but I mean, I think there's going to be plenty of talent. And the thing to me is that while I would be surprised if the Chiefs came out of the box and signed a big name free agent in the first day or two of free agency, I think once you get to day 3 and certainly 1 week after the beginning of free agency, I think that's when they will look and see, hey, who's the best player that's out there? Is there somebody that they could pick up at a reasonable value? And I think that's the other really trait. I mean, I think they're going to be looking for value in a lot of these free agents that they're going to be looking at. It's not necessarily, there might be a couple of positions where they just simply say, we need a player at this level, we need a player at this spot. So, whatever the cost, kind of like what they did with Jawan Taylor last year. I mean, did not have a starting tackle on the roster. So they had to get a tackle in free agency and somebody that they liked. They identified Jawan Taylor and just said, hey, it's got to get done. And they gave him a big contract. I don't think that's going to happen at receiver. I think it's more likely to happen at some other positions, but we'll see. And as far as the draft, I mean, it's too early, but I will always say, Sharon, the Chiefs and Brett Veach in particular learned their lesson. You don't draft position. You draft best available player. Whomever is your best available player at 32, if that's where they end up drafting or they end up moving up, you do not reach. You simply take the best available player. Can't worry about position. So that's my simple answer there. We'll get more into that. So we'll see what happens. Chad, jumping into it, do you think Drew T and Nick A will be back next season? I know the Chiefs would definitely, I mean, they'd love to have them both back. Drew in particular, I think is a really good chance. He seems to really love it here in Kansas City and seems comfortable. I still don't think he's going to be demanding a huge contract, even as good of a season as he had. I mean, I don't think that there's going to be a huge demand out there for him, whereas I think that the Chiefs might have the biggest demand for him because they know what he can do. And, Willie Gay is going to be a free agent, and I am expecting that Willie Gay is not going to be back with this team. I think it's more likely that, that he's going to be that there's going to be a team that really takes a shot at his athleticism and wants to see what they can get out of him and might sign him to a pretty pricey deal. So I would be surprised if Willie Gay was back, which makes being in Drew Tranquil back even more important. So I think there's mutual interest there. I would not be surprised. The unfortunate thing for Nick Allegretti is with the injury, with the torn UCL that was reported today by NFL Network. I've been told that it's not a long-term recovery for Nick, that he will miss OTAs, but he is expected to be back by the beginning of training camp. He is a free agent, so that could be something that ends up getting stretched out. May not sign in March. Maybe he waits to see when he's 100%. If there's some teams out there looking for starting guard, maybe somebody's going to take a chance on Nick anyway. I mean, hitting the free agent market as the starting left guard for a Super Bowl champion would have been a great way for Nick to go out and hit free agency. And and last year there wasn't a big market for him, which I was really surprised. I thought he would get an offer to be a starting guard for somebody in this league. He's obviously shown that he can play center as well. So there's some versatility that I would think that some teams would absolutely have to have some value for. But there's no doubt. I mean, Nick has a place in Kansas City if he wants to come back, if he needs to come back just to, have one of those 1-year prove it deals so he can come back and maybe hit free agency again next year. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, certainly for the Chiefs. It wouldn't be necessarily the best thing for Nick's career because I think he deserves to be a starter in this league and the opportunity. But it's just with the injury, will that happen this year? So I think there's a better chance now that Nick Allegretti is back than there was a few days ago. That's not great news for him, but it's good news for the Chiefs. So we will see. But yeah, Sharon, I'm with you. Allegretti playing through the torn UCL for more than half the game. That's how tough this dude is. I mean, he loves football. He loves this team. And I saw Patrick, chimed in on that as well, saying he told him that he needed him out there. And he did. I mean, no offense to Mike Caliendo, but, hey, if you're Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, you would rather have Nick Allegretti out there blocking for you in a Super Bowl than, a guy who would really be getting his, first substantial playing time. And Mike's a capable player, but that's not necessarily when you want to find out what you got in a guy. So Nick running through that and gritting through that, especially I haven't seen anybody who really faulted his play in the second half. I mean, he played his guts out. That to me is just absolutely just speaks volumes to his character, his toughness, everything. I mean, Nick is one of those. He's a special dude. I absolutely have to give you that. Round Rock, with all of the hype of a possible three-peat, do you see Veach possibly mortgaging the future to make big splashes for next year? I can't. No, I really don't. And some of that is simply team philosophy. It's not necessarily even, Brett Veach's philosophy, but the Chiefs are never going to be one of those teams that I think like last year, I think what the base salary cap was something like 208. A team like the Eagles that spends money sometimes like it's going out of style. I think they spent like $275 million in cash. There were probably some teams that hit like $300 million in cash that they laid out last year. Chiefs are never going to be one of those teams, and they are way too focused on the long term. Mortgaging the future is what you do when you haven't won a Super Bowl and you're shoving all your chips in. You don't mortgage it when you've got Patrick Mahomes and you're set up for a big run. And I know Nick Jacobs agrees with that.
Hi, I don't even know what you're saying right now. I'm busy trying to stream to the audiences, so I'm trying to think of something clever. Sorry.
No problem at all, Nick. Great. I'm glad. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate you as always. It is wonderful to have you here.
Still got 3 more drives to get through on Coach's film. So if you're asking late fourth quarter and overtime, I don't remember right now.
I was getting ready to tell everybody that you were working on watching the Coach's film because it came out today from the Super Bowl. So we don't want to interrupt you with that. I mean,
well, you know what? I took a break from it so I could see all of you. And hi,
that is very kind and generous of you. But I was just telling Round Rock, no, I mean, Brett Veach is not going to mortgage the future for a three-peat. This team is for the long haul, especially when you got Patrick Mahomes, because you want to win every year that you have Patrick Mahomes. It's not about 1 year.
Yes, you want to. Let me read the question now that I've got this situated. No, I don't think they're going to mortgage the future. I don't think they're going to put themselves in a cap situation that they can't get out of. I mean, you have to be responsible and disciplined every year. And I know that sounds weird. That doesn't mean you don't go sign somebody. It just means, hey, I'm not going to go sign one wide receiver for $25-30 million whenever you could potentially get 2 quality receivers and maybe a running back or something like that and be able to efficiently have more on your offense. I'm not saying you do it like the wide receiving group they had this year, but I'm saying more so just there's some quality out there that the Chiefs could add to their offense that I think people would be pleasantly surprised of what a difference it could make for them.
Well, this relates to a question that I was talking about earlier, Nick, which was just, the interest that the Chiefs might have in some free agency, and it's particularly at wide receiver. And that's the thing. I mean, to me, particularly at receiver, is that there's more important characteristics at that position than just simply going out and, signing the biggest name. I mean, it's more about the scheme fit. It's more about the chemistry fit. It's more about whether or not that receiver has some, decent hands. It's about all of those things rather than just, looking at the back of somebody's football card and saying, hey, you're going to sign that guy. I mean, it's more about what's the best value. How can you get the most bang for your buck? How do you get the most, I mean, it's kind of a sabermetrics kind of thing, but you're trying to buy some wins. I mean, you're trying to, add value. You're not just going out and saying, hey, this guy's been great. He's 34 years old. Let's pay him. No, you're probably going to sign the guy that you think can pick up your offense the quickest, can adapt quickly and fit in, is going to, not disrupt your locker room, all those things.
Yeah. I mean, more than anything else, like you're talking about from a trade perspective, can they track the football? If they're going to be a deep threat for you, how well do they track the football? How well do they adjust to the football? Are they like the journey you saw Rice go on this year? Can they find the voids in zone coverage and be able to really manipulate that? Do they understand spacing that, hey, if this guy behind me is running a corner, I shouldn't run 5 yards behind him. I should probably space that out 10 to 15 yards or just not go over there at all in the fire drill. So you got to have guys who understand that. I was just looking at Mahomes' interception. I was like, That didn't happen on that play from the Super Bowl. I'll do more of that later. But at the end of the day, though, it's like they need to add speed. And what I say by that is they need to add speed that can adjust quickly whenever a blitz is coming. That more than anything else, they're gonna need that, and then they're going to need somebody who, as a deep threat, can routinely, and by routinely I mean every play, can track the football and adjust if it needs to happen, and can adjust their pacing to it, not just, hey, we're gonna take some steps here and we're gonna go a little bit faster. Oh, there's the football, we're gonna get it now. And then, it just went 5 yards in front of me. You can't have that, because that's what cost this offense so much this year. When being able to use the deep threat part of it, whenever they did have time, is because the inconsistency of not being on the same page with it. So, I mean, there's that piece of the puzzle. And then whenever teams were in some of the zone coverages, especially the Niners, whenever you're having to check underneath, you need better speed at running back to do that. You don't have that right now. So then you burn them enough that they're like, we're probably going to have to stop doing this because he just hit us for another 15 for the 5th time in this game. And we're probably going to have to go to more of a man coverage, or we're going to have to adjust it here. And then that opens stuff up for the other wide receivers. So, I've wandered on the scenic route. Really don't know where we're at right now, but no, it's just like the receivers they need to find are guys that are going to be reliable, that understand when there is a fire drill what to do, stop, drop, and roll, obviously, but things of that nature, and go from there.
And part of the wide receiver room is also going to be deciding about who from this year's team is going to be in the receiver room. And Steam Demon, appreciate the super chat. Steeman wants to know, can Chiefs cut Kadarius Toney in about 2 or 3 weeks? And while I appreciate the super chat, Steeman, I am probably going to disappoint you, because I'm assuming you're asking from the perspective in that you want Kadarius Toney to be gone in 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm not sure I can tell you that. I mean, part of it would be just watching the behavior of the Chiefs, in the sense that they haven't moved on from him yet. I mean, once Kadarius said that he was healthy and the Chiefs removed him from the injury report, if they didn't want him to be in Kansas City anymore, could have been gone right now, and wouldn't have had an impact on the salary cap or anything of that nature. I mean, he still has $2.5 million guaranteed that you'd have to pay him next year regardless. Sure, you hold on to him, you can possibly make a trade, but bottom line is that I have no reason at this point, based on people that I've talked to see that the Chiefs have lost any faith in Kadarius from that standpoint. I mean, do they have concerns? Sure. But do they think that they can salvage Kadarius and still make him a productive player in 2024? They do. So I'm not convinced that anything's going to happen to Kadarius unless something changes the status quo, which with Kadarius can always happen. But Nick, I mean, I don't know what your perspective is on it, but I don't know. I mean, this team, when it comes to players like this that are low cost, I mean, I just don't normally see them walking away unless they're given a really good reason. And I think a lot of people in the organization, even though Kadarius has had his moments, I don't think they feel like they're there yet.
Yeah, I mean, from their perspective, like, they invested a 3rd-round pick in him from a trade, so they want to make sure they maximize everything they can out of that trade. So I wouldn't be stunned if they give him another OTAs and training camp to showcase what he's capable of. And if he gets hurt, and if he's out a lot of camp, then they can make the necessary decision they have to at the 53. Or if there's an opportunity where another team may want him, then maybe you have a bargaining chip for a 6th or 7th round pick. But in terms of like him being gone in a couple weeks, I mean, is it going to stun me either way? No, it's not going to stun me either way. But I just don't know if he's done enough yet and here's the other kicker. Once they get through the draft and once they get through free agency, if they feel like they've got a guy who can replace his athletic ability and gives them better value, then maybe they make that decision. Or if Kadarius decides to do some more things on Instagram Live or on Twitter or something and try to force the hand, then maybe he forces the hand quicker. I mean, there's a lot of variables, a lot of possibilities, but he hasn't, in my opinion, he hasn't done enough yet, to warrant them being like, hey, it's been fun, but we're going to play a game called Not Be Here anymore.
I will share, two things I overheard in Las Vegas from people in the organization.
Did they know that you were listening, Matt?
They did know. I guess I should say they did know. I wasn't I wasn't in the bushes snooping around or anything.
I was walking by, and
I wasn't disguising myself as a waiter and sneaking up to Brett Veach's table at the Golden Steer or anything like that. But
you were, for people that don't know, at the Golden Steer they make the salad right there. So I'm just envisioning Matt right now being like, hey, so this is what we put in the Caesar salad. It's a pleasure. You look familiar. Where do I know you from?
No, that's not me. No, I just make the salad. That's all I do. I make the salad. But the two notable things I heard in related to this, and one specifically about Kadarius, and the other not so much, but maybe a little related to Kadarius. But one is that, specifically to Toney, was that, the observation that people outside the building don't see what happens inside the building, and they don't know and don't get that Kadarius is well liked in that locker room, that there's not a lot of animosity or anything, that that his teammates understand his frustration maybe, and they get it, and they understand him. They like him. They like the fact that he works hard, all these things. I mean, the fact that he goes out and does some silly things on Instagram from time to time doesn't bother them as much as it bothers the fans and the people on the outside, because they're friends with him. They know him. I mean, as it kept repeatedly told to me, was that he's very well liked in the organization and the locker room, and that's why they're going to try and help him and get through it. The other thing I overheard, Nick, like I said, that not specifically to Kadarius, but came up in conversations about Kadarius, was, of course, that the Chiefs would just love it if nobody on the team was on Instagram. So, which might explain why I know some people, even like coaches, used to have Instagram accounts, don't have Instagram accounts anymore.
I'm just saying, like, I think every NFL team, and probably every team in sports, no matter what the league was, they would love it if none of their players or coaches had social media. So there's zero chance they'd be like, nope, they don't have an account. That's a fake account. I don't know. It's not them.
Exactly. Chad Chapman coming in next. Do you think the Chiefs will focus more on the draft or free agency for getting a new wide receivers? I have a short answer to that question, Nick. Yes.
Nailed it, Matt. Nailed it. Yeah. Did you have more you want to add to it, or you just
I mean, that pretty much sums it up. I mean, that's my take on it. I mean, I would expect the Chiefs to throw some darts at that position in both of them. I think they're going to draft a receiver. I think they'll look in free agency. Might look at trades. I mean, I think they're going to look at receivers and under any rock they can possibly find one.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if I'm in their shoes, and I'm just going to do it as if I'm in their shoes, my strategy would be I want to get two guys in free agency. Doesn't necessarily, I'm not saying, hey, I want to spend $20 million for one guy and just get another guy. But there are some receivers that we will talk about in the weeks ahead. So don't try to just take away all the content that we're going to try to give you over the next month, okay? Don't just try to, this isn't Golden Corral buffet. We're just taking it all at once, put it on a plate, and then you're like, I don't want any more of that. But I think you want to get a couple free agents that either have been in the system, been in a similar system, but have tread on their tires to where they know what to do in a lot of the situations that the Chiefs needed them to be. Their skill sets developed at that point, and they can kind of be the football Sherpas for Rashee Rice and other people, to kind of show them this is how it's done, this is how we handle it, and this is the example. And they set the example for a Sky Moore, and they set the example for any of the other younger receivers. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks ahead and the names that we will put out there on 41 is the mic in the weeks ahead. And then you will ask about until late March. Don't worry, we got time, guys. We don't have time. We don't have to do it all night. Um, and then I would love to selfishly see them draft a receiver. And if they drafted 2 receivers, I'm not going to complain, because I think the key for them going forward to keep costs down at certain positions if they need to and continue to develop is to always draft at certain positions, whether that's a defensive, whether that's an edge rusher, a wide receiver, maybe an offensive tackle you develop, maybe a corner, somebody in the secondary. And every year you try to add on to those pieces so you keep that cost down. So if hypothetically, like for example, take L'Jarius Sneed right now, you hope to see L'Jarius Sneed back, but if that knee doesn't check out whenever they're doing a physical, or if something occurs to where it's the number's not going to meet for both parties and he can get more in the open market, well, I mean, look at the Chiefs secondary right now. You've collectively, I'm not just talking corner, I'm like, you've got Trent McDuffie, you've got Josh Williams, you got Jalen Watson, you've got Brian Cook, you got Justin Reed, hopefully you have Najee Johnson back to form because of whenever it occurred for him ACL wise. And then, then you got Nick Jones, if I didn't mention him. And then you got Echo Boydo. And, you've invested so much youth into your secondary, and you have such a good secondary coach in Dave Merritt who develops those guys. In all honesty, as long as you have good position coaches that can help develop the younger guys, that's how you're going to maintain cost control for whenever you have a Patrick Mahomes contract, and you can handle having certain elite players on your roster that can be the leaders of the team while you continually develop. And then if it gets to that final year where you're like, hey, we've already developed a guy behind them, we're not going to pay that number down the road, then maybe that's where you do a Tyreek Hill aspect to it. And then you trade that, you trade that player at an opportunity and you get valuable assets. Because for the Chiefs, in my opinion, over the next 5 to 6, 7 years, for Brett Veach, the key is going to be having as many draft picks as possible. And some of them that aren't their own, that are going to be higher higher numbers of draft picks, not picking 32 in every round or 31 or 29 or 28. Having those to be able to fill in these spots with the cross control that you need so that you're always able to maintain a certain level at a position group and not have the dips or the drops like the Chiefs did with the O-line in 2020, or, the secondary that they did whenever they had the 13-second game and they had to go and spend all these lottery tickets on, secondary. So whatever they can do to map that out, to maintain that. And this is a year right now that I think they're going to have to do a balance of free agency and draft to get some of these spots in a good position. But if they do it and they hit it correctly this year, I think they really set themselves up to where they're able to maintain a competitive roster. But wide receiver is going to be a big part of that this year. And I think defensive line's another big part of it, that if they can get those things in a certain comfort level, then I think they can continually add to this roster and maintain all across the board. Matt, I wandered again. I wandered.
No, I love it when you wander. We all love it when you take the scenic route. There's no doubt about that.
It's really dark right now. I can't see it very well.
Just look for the moon, Nick. I mean, it's the Lunar New Year. You're going to be okay.
Touche.
Brandon's asking another question about the wide receivers. Anyone still shocked that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl with the wide receiver core they had they had this season? I guess Mahomes can overcome anything. I mean, you know what, Nick, this, in retrospect, I mean, this is probably another one of those things that Mahomes needed to, if he wants to ever achieve GOAT status and to solidify his Hall of Fame status like he needs to. But winning a Super Bowl a season like this is definitely one of those ticks in the box, because I'm going to give you 3 names, Nick. David Givens, David Patton, and Deion Branch. Those were the top 3 receivers that Tom Brady had in a Super Bowl winning season. Sometimes you just got to elevate the guys around you.
I thought you were going to say these are all 3 receivers' names that started with a D on the Patriots.
I thought you were just going to say these are 3 guys who have never been in my kitchen.
Well, that's true too. They haven't. You would be accurate in that statement, sir.
But Tom Brady won Super Bowls with Wes Welker and Julian Edelman as his best receivers.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you right now, Rashee Rice is better than those guys.
Then which guy?
Than Wes Welker and Julian Edelman.
I don't know about Julian, man. Julian
had some nice seasons.
Really good. Really
he had
good.
Some nice seasons. There's no doubt about it. But I'm going to say Rashee Rice is better.
We'll find out over time. I'm just saying, Jules was a special receiver, and Welker was a really good route runner. I'll give him that. So
I liked him.
Can Rice
like
be
them
better
both,
than
but...
them? I can't say that he won't, because I haven't seen his full career yet. But it
took Julian Edelman 5 years in the NFL before he had a 900-yard season.
Yeah, because he was a quarterback that they transitioned to receiver. So it took time to get him to that point, man.
It did. That's why he's better right now. Rashee Rice is better than Julian Edelman was.
Oh, you're doing it by year. You're not talking at the end of the
year. Even both. I would say. All right. Yes, I will coach it in that term and say that yes, that right now Rashee Rice is better than Julian Edelman was in his first 4 seasons.
Okay, I'll give you that one.
It is probably as good as Julian Edelman was in season 5.
Right, we're going to call it a draw.
And that by season 5, I am expecting Rashee Rice to be better than Julian Edelman was at any point in his career.
You hope so, but
that's a hot take, Nick. I'm not shooting away that it's not a hot take, but
it is as hot as those Cheeto flaming hot Cheetos a little bit ago at the store.
But what do you think? I mean, Mahomes can't overcome anything, but this was, and I think he's done it before. I mean, it's particularly if you look at some of the guys who've left here and looked at their numbers after they left. I mean, I think Mahomes has been elevating guys since he got in the league, but your mileage may vary.
Oh, you mean Albert Wilson had a good time with Mahomes and then didn't pan out after that? I just thought of a name after I said Albert Wilson because I thought he was like him in training camp, and he never got to play. Was Remigio? That's the guy that I'm actually really excited about for the Chiefs this upcoming year if he can stay healthy. I'm really
Remigio.
I'm going to trust you on this one.
Remigio, we believe.
Remigio.
Yes.
I hope I said it right. If I didn't, I'll work on it. It's the off season. That's what we're here for. But I am excited about him. I am intrigued by him as a receiver, and I think he has a lot of promise for him. But yeah, in terms of it all, what Mahomes accomplished this year, even though the national media is going to forget it in about 5 months, and then they'll be bringing up the storylines again. He went on the road, played on the road, won. Played the 3 toughest teams that were crowned at various points in the season from the AFC, took them to church, and said, enjoy your offseason. Then played who they had crowned in week 1, the best team in the NFC with the 49ers, played them in the Super Bowl, and outlasted them into overtime to win back-to-back championships in that moment. So Mahomes has done all of that. Then on top of it, you bring in what you talked about with the wide receiving group and did that to where the arguments that people kept making previously were like, well, he's got Travis Kelce. Well, he's got Tyreek Hill. Well, he's got this. He's got Andy Reid, Yeah, people need other people around them to be good, to be successful. That's life. And so, I mean, you can't run an effective business or team if it's just one guy out there who has to be the custodian, the cashier, have to be the attendant at the gas pump to make sure everything's, good on the up and up. You can't just have one individual that's a rock star at all. You need a team to make a business work. The only reason I said this because I was at a gas station a little while ago. A place called QT. But I'm wandering again, Matt. It's happening again.
It's okay. It's okay, sorry. Man.
No, but like from a receiver perspective, like yes, Patrick did it with a wide receiving group that isn't going to go down as one of the elites in NFL history. And you're probably not going to see, most of them are not going to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And most of them are not going to be in the NFL top 100. And most of them aren't going to go to the Pro Bowl. I'm not saying all, because there's one guy who might in the future. And so Patrick keeps slaying every dragon that people keep putting in front of him. He keeps jumping every hurdle that people put in front of him. So the question will be, what will be the next hurdle? Is it that he can't lead his team to the Super Bowl and win it 3 times? Is the question that he can't play a football game with his left hand tied behind his back? You know, like there's going to be something. There's going to be doubts. And if there isn't a certain level or standard that the Chiefs play at on a regular basis, the national media is going to hop all over it, because they have to create storylines every week to be able to get you to watch them. So that is, well, if you watch Countdown to Kickoff, produced by myself, we just put the facts out there. But yeah, it's just, yeah, it's like there's always going to be something. And then there's going to be a day when Patrick Mahomes retires. Hope it's never, but there will be a day. And, you know, people can be like, he was pretty good. He had a pretty good career. I miss watching him. And, that's going to happen too at some point.
Bite your tongue, Nick. I mean,
all right.
Patrick Mahomes will live forever and will play football for the rest of his natural life. So Brandon, I think most of them meant this as a comment, but I had to bring it up because I want to give a shout out to Harrison Butker, because he was nails. I mean, until I was advocating until about 3 minutes. Well, no, I guess no less than that, because it would have been the final drive. I was advocating until until overtime for sure. But let's say the last few seconds of the game, I was definitely advocating that if the Chiefs won the game, Harrison Butker, especially if he'd won the game, they won the game with a field goal, I'd have been advocating Harrison Butker for MVP. Harrison Butker, he needs like 10 more years of this, of what he's been. I mean, he needs some time. But I tell you what, he played 10 more years of really, really good football. And now, he's got, he'd have like 15 seasons in the league, and he's going to have some more playoff games. But if he has 10 more years like he's had thus far, Harrison Butker belongs in the Hall of Fame, and might belong in the Hall of Fame over a guy like Justin Tucker, if Justin Tucker never gets into the playoffs to make, some memorable kicks and gets a highlight reel play. Because, I mean, Harrison Butker's already has more field goals in the Super Bowl than any other kicker. That's ridiculous, Nick.
Look, he's a talented guy. I feel like he had one of his best seasons this year. Like, this is one of the best seasons I've ever seen from a kicker in Kansas City. And like, just how reliable he was. He didn't have some of the inconsistencies that he did last year. And you were just waiting for those to pop up, and you'd be on edge. You're like, all right, this might be the time where it does. And you're like, nope, did it again. Announcer says something about, oh, he's perfect, he's blah, blah, blah. And you're like, come on, man. And then he still hits it through, and you're like, all right. So, yeah, you're just hoping Harrison can keep that level of consistency. But part of it also may have been the injury that he got early last year on that plant, and that kind of bothered him throughout the year more than we realized.
I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, I felt all along last year was the injury more than anything. And back to healthy this year, he was absolutely nails. Sure. Are both Matt and Nick at Price Chopper? What? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what. I mean, you've already gone grocery shopping today, because you told me that you went early.
Yeah, I did it so I could give you more time on the show tonight,
which I greatly appreciate.
Just remember, I care.
You do, and I'm not gonna pull you into this, because but I will say, I mean, I'm a Hy-Vee guy, so although I can change based on sponsorship opportunities. So
have you and you saw somebody at Hy-Vee recently?
I did,
unexpectedly, after you did a Q&A with them last week.
Yes,
or the week before, I can't remember.
So I guess we can say that Nick and I, if you're going to find us, we probably will be at a Hy-Vee.
I just love the fact that we literally did this Q&A a couple weeks ago before you left for Vegas. And then like it's within an hour after we did this Q&A. And then we run into each other in one of the aisles. And I'm like, oh, hey, guy, I remember you.
Things like that happen. Joe G's hashtag in Spags We Trust. Are you going to write a commemorative book for this season? Need to add my collection. I wish I had one in the pipeline, Josh. I don't right now. I mean, so you never know. Things could change, and I will let you know. But unfortunately, not right now.
And
But
I will answer too, Josh. I will not be doing a book. I can barely read correctly, so writing is not much better for me.
Cody asking, how much back-to-back merch are you going to get? Me, I'm being irresponsible. Well, Nick, I mean, you're probably more the merch guy than I am. So, are you? I mean, I know one purchase you absolutely have to make because you need another Lombardi trophy for the mantle.
I don't know what you're talking about right now, Matt.
Don't know what I'm talking about. That's true. But I'm curious. I'm kind of curious about everybody out there. Now that's number 3. Do you find yourself getting less merch as each one goes by? Be like, already got a couple of Super Bowl T-shirts. I don't need another one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was asking you.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know.
I mean, anybody. I want people to answer in the chat too. But
yes. Okay, just make sure. Well, the weirdest thing that I do after each one is the pennant. I don't know why, but the pennant's the coolest part. And I may have accidentally bought 2 yesterday because there's one that said back to back, and I was like, well, that is historic. Got it,
Yeah.
win in Rome. So then, yeah, I mean, because those pennants go faster than you realize, and those are tougher to find after a couple months. I found out the hard way at the Royals World Series. So I'd say this way: the Royals World Series in 2014 taught me that yes, when you do have the opportunity to buy some of that stuff, you go ahead and do it. Now, the things I've been wrestling about, there is one I will say, that WWE Championship belt that's got the Super Bowl logo and the Chiefs on it. I was wrestling with it yesterday. Still haven't made an official decision. Some commemorative footballs I'll be keeping tabs on to see if Big Time Bats will be making some of those cool commemorative ones like the Mahomes Super Bowl MVP and that type of stuff. Now, the reason I say this and all this type of stuff is simply because the coolest thing for me when I was a little kid was my parents got everything from the 1985 World Series. I wasn't alive at the time, but I was baking in the oven, if you want to call it that. But like I would get to, my parents would pull that out and let me look at it, and I'd look at it every year. I'd be like, man, I'd wonder, because I was big into sports as a little kid, and I was like, man, I wonder what that'd be like to experience a World Series or a Super Bowl. And you just look at that year after year because of the drought that the Kansas City sports went through. And then for it to happen in 2014, everybody bought up everything that they could, anything they could to have that moment. Just like I have on a hard drive that I keep, and I have every game from the 2 years the Royals were in the World Series, every playoff game, all that type of stuff. I have on a hard drive. All the Chiefs playoff games, I've made sure I've saved on hard drives so that I have down the road if when DVDs completely don't exist anymore. And it's just and maybe the NFL decides someday that, hey, we don't like that NFL Plus anymore, we're going to get rid of that. I don't want to find out what I have to do at that point to be able to get those things, digital copies of them. So yeah, no, I will never judge anybody in terms of being able to have that memory and to be able to keep that memory, because at the end, if down the road, if I do have kids, I want them to be able to pass. That's one of those things you want to pass on to kids or family members from a legacy perspective, to kind of let them see a part of the historical past. Just like for people that are on here right now, I will tell you in advance, the SI copy for the Sports Illustrated for the Chiefs Super Bowl win, that's coming out on Friday to be able to purchase in the Kansas and Missouri area. I got an email on that this morning because I'm on the mailing lists, not from SI, but from whoever the PR person was that sent that out. And then a certain beverage, they mentioned that they will be in stores in late March, and you will see the beverages tomorrow during the parade route where people can be able to get those. I don't want to name them because they're not paying for this, so that's not gonna, sorry. But that
Will it
will
be
be here.
49ers tears, or is it a different beverage?
No, it is not a milk. It is
Oh, okay.
it is something Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce have drank in the past.
There you go.
Eric Fisher has celebrated during a Houston Texans playoff game touchdown.
Now I'm with you. That's right. If you want to be mentioned, you got to be a sponsor.
Exactly. But yeah, those you'll see those. Allegedly, those will be sold tomorrow, and then they'll be in stores in the area sometime in late March, I think is what the email said. So I appreciate that, they're so used to having us on the mailing list that I find out when this stuff's going to be, so I don't have to, wander down the Hy-Vee aisle every week and be like, is this the week? Is this the week?
Is this the week?
I will tell you, Mano Wines, the new one that they've got for the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl one, the champagne one looks really cool because it's got a Vegas logo on it.
Oh, there you go.
And that was another thing when I'd go to, family and friends bars and they'd have some of the Royal stuff or the Cardinals, remember they've won World Series and everything like that. It's just like one of those historic things. I know Coca-Cola is coming out with another Chiefs one, but I made the mistake of getting that 1 year and the cans burst. So they leaked out on a regular basis over time. So I've decided that the Coca-Cola thing is probably not a good idea for me.
It sounds like could be plan B option here. Yeah. I suppose, we might be going the lightning round faster and earlier than normal, Nick, because I just realized that I am still answering questions from 40 minutes ago. So
all right, lightning round.
Oh wait, no, I'm wrong. 50 minutes ago. So
but don't worry, I already went to the store. I got time.
Actually, I suppose I should, if I'm going in chronological order, I can give a quick one to this because Brandon wants to know if we're going to be at the parade tomorrow. I know I won't because I will be at home watching all the speeches from the comfort of my home on KSHB 41. And I'm reasonably comfortable that you will be at KSHB 41 ensuring that I can watch that.
You were correct, sir. We have we had a meeting earlier today and went over it. There was about, I think, 75 people on the Zoom call.
Oh my goodness.
We were planning out, and we have more people that work there than that. So yeah, we went in depth about everything, and it's kind of it'll be really cool. I'm just telling all of you tomorrow, if you are not in town or if you can't make it down there, if you're having to work or if you're not able to, you have a family member, I'm telling you, KSHB 41, we're going to be streaming it. So you can watch on KSHB.com. You can watch it on the mobile app. You can watch it anywhere. We're going to have it everywhere to where even if you are not in town, you will be able to watch the parade. And we are the official partner for the parade. So we will be inside the gate. So we will be right there with the buses. And we have some cool shots especially from last year. For people that may not remember, there's a one legendary shot where Patrick Mahomes it looked like he was E.T. phoning home whenever he put his finger up to the jib camera that we had over top of it, and he said hi and waved. Then Justin Reed had just a legendary moment to where he borrowed one of the reporters' microphones and he's talking to the jib camera and he's just talking about how they doubted us and they couldn't stop us. And then he handed the microphone back and then he walks off and the jib camera kind of, zooms back and everything and starts tilting up. And it looks like Justin Reed's walking off into the sunset of a movie, but it's in real time during the parade. Cool as heck.
That was cool.
Yeah. So and I'm thinking about retweeting those tonight if I can find them. But that's going to be a search for that. I know that. But yeah, KSHB 41, we will have the parade. We're going to have countless crews there. And the coverage for us starts at 4:30 in the morning because we have morning shows then. But the parade itself will start at 11 a.m. if I remember correctly. So it's going to be it's the normal parade route as it has been. But I'm telling you, you just put it on KSHB 41 whenever you wake up, even if that's at 4:30 in the morning, and you just roll that thing through, and you're gonna have fun watching the parade coverage. I know that because this is the third one we're gonna be doing, so we have experience at that one.
That is right. You guys do a bang up job with it too. Jesus asking, does FAU start next year? Whose spot does he take? Well, right now, I mean, I'm expecting that the Chiefs may have like two defensive ends under contract for next season that would be helpfully in week one, because I'm not totally convinced that Charles Omenihu will be ready for week one. So if that's the case, I mean, right now, I think I would be penciling in Felix Anudike-Uzomah to start at defensive end.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, normally, if I remember correctly, for most people, ACL is kind of not. It seems like for most athletes I've watched over the years, it's about 9 months to be back on the field, and then sometimes can take up to a year and a half, 2 years to get back to normal. Yeah. So, I mean, you're hoping Omenihu can bounce back and be able to be at that point. But I remember the struggle Jamal Charles had from his ACL. I remember Eric Berry took a while to get back into the swing of it. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, that's part of the reason you draft him if something like that happened. George Karlaftis, had a monster year, and we'll see what he can do with another offseason under his belt in terms of training and how he approaches that and what's possible for him. But yeah, no, I mean, that's why defensive line, they're, in my opinion, in terms of the defensive line, they're going to need to add on that. Like if I'm in Brett Veach's shoes and I can only add at 3 positions this offseason, it is going to be D-line. And I'm not just talking D, I'm talking D tackle too, because I think they need to figure out who their get to a top 7 so you can rotate. Because I think that was a part of the problem in the Super Bowl is they didn't have enough left to be able to effectively rotate, and I think that caused them some of their problems and allowed them to get incredibly tired by that third quarter. And then, like I said, wide receiver and adding depth at running back to pair with Pacheco to limit how many touches he has so he can stay healthy and he doesn't get banged up. I think those are the 3 positions if you're going to spend and invest in. Definitely, I hope they spend most of their time and resources and money in those 3 spots.
Lightning round continues, Nick. Mo Matt's 3. What's your biggest surprise and what was your biggest disappointment? I know you're not usually big on these questions, Nick, but
you go first, Matt. How about that?
I mean, I kind of answered the first. Well, maybe my second. I mean, I guess. I mean, honestly, I might have the same answer for both.
Okay.
I mean, not to be that kind of guy, but I already said earlier. Before you got here, Nick, that my biggest surprise with this season was the offensive struggles throughout the season, throughout the regular season, and the underperformance of the receiver group. That's kind of also my biggest disappointment. I mean, that's the one thing. I think you certainly expected to see more growth from the young guys. I mean, you thought that Sky Moore would take a step forward. Mm-hmm. The expectation was that Kadarius Toney was going to be something. You didn't think that Marquez Valdez-Scantling was going to fall off a cliff. I mean, you didn't expect these things during the regular season, and they all seem to happen. And the offense, as a result, struggled. I mean, they made a lot of mistakes during the regular season, too many penalties, too many drops, all those things. So, I mean, that was kind of my thing. But then I guess if you just want to say that if the offensive performance throughout the regular season was the biggest disappointment, I mean, I would probably say my biggest surprise is one of 2 things. Either one, just how well the defense played, because I mean, I guess that was not a bigger surprise to me than the offense, because the defense getting better under Steve Spagnuolo was always a possibility, and they had the parts to be a really good defense. Didn't think they'd be this good, but you could certainly say that was a nice surprise. But I think otherwise my biggest surprise might be just how well the offense played in the postseason, because they have as rough as a regular season they did, and then just flipped the switch once the playoffs started. Now, maybe that's all Mahomes, and so I should just say that that's not a surprise at all, in which case, I would have to back that out as being a surprise, because if Patrick Mahomes flips a switch in the playoffs, that's, dog bites man.
For me, biggest surprise will be how quickly Rashee Rice picked everything up. Like, that's really that was the most impressive thing for me in terms of how much he progressed in this offense in year 1 and just how much he made himself a key part of this offense. That was incredibly impressive. So from a big surprise perspective, that that's got to be top of my list to where it's like, wow, he accomplished something this year that a lot of rookie receivers don't, and some guys even that have been in the league for a little bit don't. And that's a tribute to him and how much work he put into it. In terms of biggest disappointment, I would say, I know it sounds weird, but I'm going to do it twofold. Part of it is, like you said, I was expecting more from this Chiefs offensive line in the run game. And I know it sounds weird, but like I just expected them to be more dominant with the veterans that they had. And there was a lot of times this year where I felt like they left a lot on the table in terms of run blocking wise that really could have helped this team. And and another part of the disappointment would be just how long it took the Chiefs to figure out their identity and who they were and how they were going to have to win. But at the end of the day, they still won a Super Bowl, still did all that. Mahomes got to go through the growing pains of that to have to learn when to be the gunslinger and when to be the guy who, is willing to either eat the ball, throw the ball away, or when he needed to force it. When he needed to force it against Kyle Hamilton and Travis Kelce in that first touchdown of the Ravens game, versus you take the Super Bowl, and I'll bring up the plays. I watched on Coach's film. There was a play, the one where you saw Mahomes and the Chiefs ended up having to settle for a field goal with Harrison Butker there in the fourth quarter. And you see Mahomes start to run, and then he pump fakes and jumps up, and then he, pulls it back down. What actually happened on that play, you don't see it till you see the all 22, is two guys were taking the crossing route away that was happening. And so Fred Warner was on it, and so was one of the safeties or corners. And I can't remember if it was Kelce or Watson, because the other person was running the other part of the route. And like they had it closed down. And so the problem was there was a crossing route that was coming off of it the other way. And because of it, they weren't able to, the way that they had it timed with a potential kind of blend of the mesh with what they were doing there to where they have the rub off of it with the crosser and everything, like all of that, it just, Mahomes in the past maybe gunslingers it there, but he did that to try to see if he could get Warner to pull up so that window opens a little bit more, and it didn't. He's like, all right, fine, I'm just gonna have to eat it, and live to play another down and not turn it over. So yeah, no, I mean, I think that's another piece of that puzzle. But even with some of those disappointments, they still won. But they still won Super Bowl, still back to back, still made it to the AFC Championship, and that's a tribute to every single one of them for continuing to believe in what they were doing. And even though they were saying it and weren't getting results there for a while, they still found a way and did it, because the Eagles were going through the same thing. And the Eagles went into a complete tailspin after the Chiefs Monday night game. Eagles went into a tailspin, and they never recovered from it.
This is true, and a good opportunity for me to once again bring up the question about how has Andy Reid not won a Coach of the Year award in Kansas City?
It's because they give the Coach of the Year to whoever made the biggest improvement.
Yes.
They don't appreciate the people who create stability. And I think deep down, part of them is like, well, they won the Super Bowl. That's recognition enough.
What I love about the Coach of the Year award is that normally it goes to a coach who is brand new, taking over a terrible team and takes them to a decent record.
Yep.
This year, and Kevin Stefanski won that one year for exactly that formula. This year, Kevin Stefanski won the award for taking a team that he coached terribly last year and improving it this year. So you can also win the Coach of the Year award by being really bad at your job one year and then going back and being average at your job the following year. That's all my point.
I don't have anything to come back with from that. I'm sorry.
I can't. I'll get in trouble if I continue to criticize awards from people. So I got in enough trouble with that last week, Nick. Sean B, would you entertain Chris Jones of the Pats for the number 3 pick? Grab Marvin Harrison, can help with cap issues. Well, yeah, I would, but unfortunately I don't think the Pats would be interested in Chris Jones. But it raises an interesting question, Nick. Is there anybody in the top 10 that would be interested in Chris Jones?
For a top 10 pick or for like a second or third round pick?
That's the problem. I'm sure. And going to get Marvin Harrison, that'd be great. Sure. I've got no problems with that. I really want Joe Alt, though. He belongs in Kansas City.
He does. He does belong in Kansas City. I just don't. I don't think you're going to find a team that's willing to give up more than a second and third or second and fourth for Chris Jones if it does happen. I don't think you're getting a first rounder for him. I sure as heck don't think you're getting a top 10 pick for him, because the kicker of it was you take Tyreek Hill's situation, and it finally came out later, because in the moment it didn't come out, but it came out later, that the Jets were offering like the 10th overall pick, and they were offering something else for Tyreek. But the Dolphins offered more volume of picks for it.
Yeah.
So if you got the fastest receiver in the league in his prime, then you could probably get a top 10 pick. But for Chris Jones getting ready to enter 30, potentially wanting a $30 million contract, and that type of stuff, like if you're a team trying to build your culture, especially on defense, he's gonna be appealing for you, whether it's free agency or trade. But you're not gonna give up a top 10, top 15 pick for him, even if you have 2 picks in the first round. Like you're not. Yeah. You're still not likely doing that. But if you maybe would get a high second for him, and maybe a high second and high third, or maybe a high second and fourth, but you're going to need multiple teams to bid on it. You would need that to be the buzz at the combine, that there's a bidding war for Chris Jones in the trade market right now. Teams are really wanting Chris Jones, and then the Chiefs would have to place the franchise tag on him for that to even be possible. And then that would count $32 million against the salary cap, and they'd have to figure that out as well. And so, yeah, that's all that in a nutshell. And there's a lot of steps, a lot of hoops to get to that point. But I don't think you're getting Marvin Harrison in a top 10 pick for Chris Jones.
Yeah, and to your point, when the Chiefs traded Tyreek, he went to a team that was not drafting in the top 10 because they're good. Because anybody that wants Chris Jones is going to feel like Chris Jones is the missing piece to the Super Bowl. So, I know there's a place that Chris Jones would have his peak value, I think, as far as willing to go there. I think there'd be some interest because they need another piece to get to a Super Bowl. I just don't know if they would be willing to do that again, because it'd be Miami. Because Chris would sign with Miami in a heartbeat.
And why do you think that, Matt?
Can't be because he lives there, basically. Yeah, it'd be great, but I don't see any team drafting in the top 10 that's going to say to themselves, we're one piece away and Chris Jones is it. And to your point, if you're going to end up giving a guy $30 million, you don't want to give up a first round draft pick either. And for a guy in their 30s. And that was also the difference with Tyreek. He was younger. So I know I'm a losing lightning round today, Nick. Sorry.
It's all right. I'll do better with my answers. No more scenic routes.
That's my fault too. Felix play, was it just a flash in the pan, or is it what we can see in the future? Also, to quote Coach Man Alive. I'm going to take a more nuanced view on it, Nick, and say that I don't think it was a flash in the pan, but I don't think that it's necessarily indicative of future success. I've got no problems with how the Chiefs used Felix this year. They played him a lot early when they needed him. They didn't play him a lot when they had a lot of depth and a lot of veterans who were healthy and were doing just fine without him playing a lot. But he is still a work in progress, and I think an incomplete at this point as far as what he is.
Yeah. So here's what I'll say bluntly about him. Lightning round. Yeah. part on that play specifically, the guard thought he was going to fight him to the outside, so the guard reached up. Felix cut inside, shot the gap with the speed, and made the tackle behind the line of scrimmage. So the guard was expecting him to engage like most defensive linemen were going to, and he did it. He knifed inside there and did that. Now, is that something that Chris Jones would do on a regular basis? Yes, it is. And, Felix made the play and showcased the athletic ability. Now, the reason he didn't see a lot of snaps is, in my opinion, is because if they don't feel like the defensive linemen are strong in the run and effective in the run on a regular basis, they don't let them see the field. And until they're convinced that they can, they will keep guys off the field. And so for Felix, the big thing for him this year is going to be weight room strength training, him being healthy and not having the hand surgery that he kept him out, and then him truly listening to everything Joe Cullen teaches him and any other position coach that he would work with in the offseason to really be able to get to that level of strength to where they feel comfortable with him helping in the run game in the way that they need. Lightning round. I'm just going to say it that way from now
on. I'm going to co-sign on that. Yeah, I mean, Felix this year, his role was going to be as a situational pass rusher. That was what it was, and because he is a little undersized. He's still young. I mean, only 21 for crying out loud. So, but that was the Chiefs drafted him with plenty of growth for the future. We'll just see if it happens. Michael McInter, will Butker be extended this offseason? I think there's a reasonable chance. I mean, he's entering his contract season. I mean, this is the last year of his deal. It's not a terrible cap hit, but then again, you're also talking about signing a kicker at the top of his value. So if you're going to ink Harrison Butker, you're going to pay him a lot of money, Nick. And I guess the good possibility is, that you may have a really cheap punter, because I'm assuming Tommy Townsend is not going to be back. So in the world of pluses and minuses, maybe you just give Tommy Townsend Harrison Butker's money. Excuse me, the other way around. You give Harrison Butker Tommy Townsend's money and say, hey, Dave Tobe, you get your pick of rookie punters and go coach him up.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens on that front. I'm not giving up on Tommy Townsend yet, even though Drew Rosenhaus is his agent, and he's going to get him top dollar no matter what. I'm not giving up on that yet, Matt. But yeah, if you're extending Butker, like that's something like if you need it for cap space, I get it. But for the most part, that's something that you don't really do that any of those type of things until July, after you know kind of after you get everything situated with what you want to do in free agency and what you're gonna. Getting all your draft picks signed, that's more down the road type thing.
And I looked ahead. Doug in Kansas was actually asking this question, so now we can fold it in too. We don't disagree, Nick. I mean, I would keep Tommy Townsend if I can. I absolutely would. I mean, I like him. I mean, he's a good punter. He fits in well. He obviously, despite the, accusations that he wasn't a very good holder last year, obviously been a fantastic holder again this year. Congratulations, Tommy.
You like the accusations? I mean, there was
That's one way to put it. But I would keep Tommy Townsend, but I just figure, okay, Tommy's hired the best agent in the league for a reason. It's to get him top dollar. And I also know that Tommy would probably love to go play in Florida. So if there's a team in Florida that was willing to pay top dollar for a punter, I think that Tommy would love that gig.
No, and I mean, looking at his number, it's 2.6 this past year is the average on the contract. It's 2.6, and the highest paid punter in the league is average wise is Michael Dickinson at 3.6. So, I mean, you're already willing to pay that. Another million's not going to make a difference with a guy. It's not breaking the bank like it would if you're like, hey, do we want to sign Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed and tie up, somewhere between 46 to 50 million in that, or give a punter another extra million a year?
Yeah, and we might as well bring in this conversation involving James Winchester too, because not under contract for next season yet. I would assume that the Chiefs would be interested, but James is, I'm trying to remember his age off the top of my head. He's going to be 35 this year.
Yeah, he's the second longest tenured Chief behind
Travis Kelce. Yeah,
behind Kelce.
Yeah. So don't know. I mean, guaranteed, but I mean, and once again, we're not talking big numbers here. I mean, the only thing that you're saving by going younger for James Winchester is you're talking about saving a couple $100,000 off the cap. I
Yeah.
mean, for the reliability you get with James Winchester, a couple 100,000 is worth it to me. But you know, you're once again, your mileage may vary, Nick.
Lightning round.
Lightning round. We're going to combine two questions in once here because Michael wants to know if could Kelsey be extended to free up more cap space this year, and if Joe Toney can be extended if he wants to play a few more years. I mean, Toney's under contract for 2 more years. His contract situation is really, really messy because his contract was set up to have an option out after this year because it was a 5-year deal. It was basically 3 plus 2 options, but the Chiefs have restructured him so much for the last 2 years that he's got a lot of dead cap space that I don't know if you really want to eat all that. So I kind of feel like that Joe Toney is going to be around. And if Joe Toney is going to be around, hey, Nick, why don't you just add a couple more years on the back end of that contract and take his $15.5 million salary this year and kick it even further down the curb?
Yeah, I mean, the question that they're going to ask themselves internally on this part is, what is the cost going to be to get Creed and Trey Smith re-signed the following year? Because this is the final year of their rookie contracts. So in 2025, what do you want to pay to keep both of those guys numbers wise? Because right now, Joe Toney is 26.9 million, and he's going to be 33 at that point. So, like, do you want to take his money and invest that into Creed and Trey to pay for them and have 2 offensive linemen, or is it going to cost you that much just to keep one of them? That's what they need to kind of decide this season. And then when they do that, then they can say, well, hey, let's restructure Joe and kick the can down the road. Or if they eat it like I would in their shoes, then that allows them to kind of move forward next year if they need to keep the other 2 key parts of their interior. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, I'm sorry, but it's lightning round.
and well, with Kelsey, to me, his contract, he's got like $5.1 million in dead money over the next 2 seasons, which isn't a ton. But his cap numbers aren't unreasonable. I think it's like 15 and a half this year. And he's under contract for 1 more year. So he's under contract through 25. That cap number is a little bit bigger. I think it's like 19 something in 25. But I mean, the only problem is that, if you're going to change Travis's contract, I mean, the only way you really get a lot of cap savings is if you extend it, which you certainly could. But I think that comes down to, if you're going to extend it, is it because you want Travis to play those seasons? Does Travis want to play those seasons? Are you better off just taking the cap hit now rather than pushing it off down the road? I mean, Travis's number that's out there, I mean, it's not going down. I mean, you're really just talking about the money he's got and, like I said, spreading it over different years. But I'm just not sure if there's a lot of value in doing that if, unless Travis is committing to you and saying, yeah, I'm going to play until I'm 37 or 38.
Yeah, I mean, he's at a comfortable number now. I mean, I don't get uncomfortable with cap numbers till they get above 20, personally. Then you're kind of like, yeah. So I mean, like right now, Jawan Taylor at 24.7 million cap number wise. That's not what you want. It's not personally what you want, but that's the cost of doing business to get a tackle. Joe Toney at 26.9. I'm not a big fan of. Patrick Mahomes at 58 million cap wise. Huge fan of. Whatever he wants. As long as his name's still there and attached to the Chiefs, huge fan of it. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, when you start getting guys over 20 million, and the fact they literally only have 2 other guys under over 20 million right now, cap hit wise. Like the Chiefs, it's you wish there was more money in the overall cap from the league, but they got what they got, and that's the price of having the best quarterback in the league is that, and that's where the other strategy of having position coaches that can develop your draft picks and have as many draft picks as possible. Like that's big part of the future to be able to maintain this and have it to where you only have a couple cap numbers that are in between the 20 and 30 range that aren't named Patrick Mahomes.
Very true. Lightning round.
Lightning round.
Chiefs
I'm gonna
bring
do
it.
this after every one. I apologize, but it's fun.
I'm gonna finally try to stick to the lightning round concept.
Okay.
Since now we've improved. We're only 46 minutes or 44 minutes behind.
Holy
Um,
heck, man.
Kathy, Chiefs bring in a fullback this year. My short answer is going to be if Blake Bell is back, yes. If Blake Bell is not, maybe.
I'm not expecting it. I think they kind of phased it out this past year, and unless it's one of those really special fullbacks, then I don't see that for happening unless the Chiefs want to become a more run heavy offense, which I don't think is going to be the case.
I mean, if like I said, if to me, if they don't have, if they had like, if let's say Jody Fortson's their third tight end next year, and it's not Blake Bell, and they can find a really good fullback that can play special teams, maybe. But
Yeah,
once again,
special teams will be a big factor in lightning round.
can you see the Chiefs deciding to go all in for 3, no matter what it costs the future? We kind of talked about this earlier. No, I can't. I mean, that's to me, you're trying to win every year that you got Patrick Mahomes. I don't think it's you go all in.
No, because when you stretch yourself that thin, like this is bad things are going to happen. You're going to have a bad time long term. That's what that's going to be. So no, you don't mortgage everything for 2024 to have pain in 2025 and 2026 because there's like Matt said, there's a certain guy trying to chase Brady, and you can't do that if you got to have two bad years of cap situations.
I mean, would you take winning the Super Bowl in 25 and 26 if it meant you lost in 24?
Well, you know what, Matt?
You're just not even going to concede losing 24, though. I know you.
Never lose. I want to win all.
No deal. No deal. You might win all 3 and 5, Pete. Brandon, why did the 49ers not discuss the overtime plan? I mean, my short answer is that, I mean, bless his heart, Kyle Shanahan is not as experienced and detailed as Andy Reid.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's, and you're 100% right on that, Matt. It's just, like you said, Andy had to go through a lot of the pain and heartaches when he was in Philly. And he had to learn the lessons that Kansas City and the Chiefs fan base is now reaping the rewards of. Whether it was, time management issues that followed him here, that since he's had Mahomes has been, not that big of an issue here. And it's not been that, it's not been hasn't been the headache that Eagles fans kept trying to always say on a regular basis when they keep bringing up his early 2000s. It's like, man, it's like 15 years ago. Move on. Okay. But yeah, I'm sorry. I just keep thinking of this tweet that I saw and it relates to that, to where somebody said, I love the fact that some of the 49ers players and Tony Romo were finding out the overtime rules at the same time Ice Spice was up in the press box. I just keep thinking of that, and I'm sorry. Yeah, that's how
I'm amused by the Tony Romo part of that.
Yeah.
Doctor Who, how hard will the AFC West become with Harbaugh and Peyton? To me, it's going to be hard, Nick, especially, I mean, because I think Harbaugh is going to have more success in year one with the Chargers than Peyton had with the Broncos in year one.
Yes. Yeah, the Chargers are going to be the new threat. Like, it may take Harbaugh a couple years to get it to where he wants to from a physicality perspective, but if you're paying attention to the coaching staff he's building over there, by year 2, they're going to be a serious threat playoff wise, as long as there aren't injuries and the things of that nature. I'm just curious to see who he lets go of from this roster in Los Angeles, and then who they build up over time and who they bring in to really kind of create a tough-nosed physical football team. And they're going to run the ball a lot. Like, that's going to happen. So that's why whenever I talk about Chiefs defensive line and defensive tackles as much as I am right now, I am, because Harbaugh is coming, and he's going to bring a physicality run-wise that the Chiefs are going to have to be able to match here for however long he's in Los Angeles. And then with the Broncos, you just don't know who's going to be Sean Payton's quarterback right now. So until that situation gets resolved, you don't know what he will or won't be. And then Antonio Pierce, he's another guy who seems to love to run the ball too. So the Chiefs' ability, run defense wise, is going to be a big part of them having to make sure that they're good in the AFC West to be able to continually try to repeat as champions.
I'm with
Lightning
you.
round.
Mo Mats, Byron Pringle. You want Byron Pringle?
For what?
To play wide receiver.
I mean, hey, I loved seeing him when he was here, but they're gonna need a faster guy than that.
Bumpa BB super chat. Thank you very much, Bumpa. Want Toney and Sky gone so that they don't rotate wide receiver. I mean, and both of those guys are actually in the same position in that they are affordable and under team control for next year. I mean, unless a team comes along and was willing to give up a draft pick for one of these guys and thinks that they can turn them into something that the Chiefs haven't to this point, I think both those guys are going to be back. Doesn't mean that they will be on the team, but I expect them to be around for OTAs and into training camp and see what happens. What about you?
Yeah, I think they're going to compete. I think we'll see both of them up in training camp as of right now. But like we said earlier, we'll see what Kadarius does on the gram.
Bobby also with the super chat. Thank you, Bobby. Truly appreciate you. How much did Toney being out, Allegretti in hurt? I mean, you've watched now the coach's film, or at least most of it, Nick. I mean, I watching the game live. I saw Allegretti get hurt, but I didn't see him reacting too negatively to it. So at the time, I'm not even sure if I noted it to say that he got dinged up. I'd have to go back and look at my Twitter feed to see if I did mention it. But I just remember watching him, but then just going to the sideline and saying he was okay and just moving on. But then we find out that it's a torn UCL. I mean, I didn't really see anything that I would call him out for in the second half, but I don't know what you saw since I know you've paid a lot more attention to it than I have.
So looking at the coach's film, it appears, I can't definitively say, but it appears he got hurt whenever it was a Clyde Edwards-Helaire run, and Nick had his arm out, and then it just got smashed into while he's trying to block, and then like he goes down, and you see him grabbing his elbow. And I remember seeing that live, and I'm like, oh boy, hope he's all right there. And then when he came back out there, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, he's gonna play through whatever it is. So all right. But when you start watching it in the coach's film, he had a big pad. Like it was noticeable how big of a pad he had on there to try to keep everything maintained. And so then what the rushers were doing, the defensive tackles for San Francisco, is they were shooting that outside shoulder, and they were attacking that shoulder. So when his arm got overextended, you could tell he couldn't keep grip anymore. He couldn't keep the power that he needed to, and then that's how guys were ripping through on him. So it did cause noticeable problems for him. He soldiered through it. He still used the arm and everything, but whenever it got put out at that level like that, then that's whenever he started really having problems at being able to control the defender. And there were more pressure started happening after that. Lightning round.
By the way, I finally get it because I started 9 minutes late, Nick. So I am pretty sure that the jokes about us being at Price Chopper was related to the fact that I wasn't here either. So there you go. It's all making sense now.
Oh.
Jenny wants to know about the offensive tackles. I mean, Jawan Taylor.
I thought that said QT for a minute.
What about the QTs, Nick? I mean, I know you're a big fan and all.
Yep.
Which one's your favorite? No. Jawan Taylor will be your right tackle. I am 98% convinced of that. There's just a couple of multiverses, I think, where he's your left tackle, but I'm not expecting that. There's some things where Thanos really goes crazy, and Jawan Taylor is your left tackle, and probably there's one where Trey Smith is your right tackle or something. I don't know what happens, but left tackle is a better question. I mean, Donovan Smith was certainly banged up at the end of the season, but not under a contract for next year. He was kind of the stopgap solution. I'm expecting that, the Chiefs will probably look for a longer-term solution in this offseason. Could be Wanya Morris, could be somebody else, but I'm expecting that there will probably be a different left tackle. I'm just not convinced that it will be Jawan.
Yeah, I'm mentally prepared for there to be a new left tackle. I think I think they're going to keep right tackle in place with Juwan and just let him spend the entire offseason working at that one spot, continue to try to improve there, have less false starts and less holding penalties, and go from there. Lightning round.
Nick, one for exclusively for you here. No, you haven't gotten through the film completely, but so far, what did you see from the KCO line and how they dealt with Bosa?
Part of it is they had McKinnon chip him a handful of times, or they made sure that he had to go wide at a certain angle with how they did some of their formations. So he had to go in wider nines sometimes when they did a couple things here and there. But yeah, they were trying to keep him as wide as they could and keep him widened out whenever they were setting up and everything. And they were mindful of him, and Mahomes tried to get the ball out as quickly as he could before Bosa was able to get to him.
Doctor Who wants to know, did MVS do enough yet to come back next year? I think maybe before you got here, Nick, I said I think that Marquez could be back, but I think he would have to rework that third year of the contract and change the cap number a little bit. Do you have any thoughts?
I think if they can find an upgrade, then they move on from him. But if they can't, then I could see him being on the roster. He's already invested enough time in the offense and everything combined. But they do need to explore every option of upgrading at wide receiver to where they have players who have above him in terms of athletic ability, ball tracking skills, and ability to catch. But we'll see how it all shakes out.
Go for KC forever. Ask, I'm late. So is there any way the Chiefs can keep both CJ and L'Jarius Sneed? Short answer is, yeah. I mean, yes, there is a way. I think it's a slim shot, but the Chiefs would like to. I mean, what do you give it, Nick? I mean, I'm probably giving it like 8%.
I think from a cost perspective, I think unfortunately you're having to choose one or the other. And part of it may be with, especially with Chris, if you invest that amount of money in him, you're gonna limit yourself in other positions where you need to kind of raise multiple, position groups to a certain standard and level. But if you don't have Chris, we're gonna find out what life after him is like, and it may not be what everybody hopes for and expects, and it might be rough, and the way they have to call some defenses and some of the pressure they may not be able to get. So, I mean, they've got a tough decision ahead of them with both Sneed and Chris, because both of them have been big parts of the defense and have earned the opportunity to get paid maximum value, whether it's in Kansas City or on the open market. Lightning round. Sharon, I love it. Probably won't get this question in since Matt's still in the first half hour. We're catching up, Sharon. Burn.
What about Creed? That grounder snap arguably lost the game in regulation with Rice open. Yeah, I mean, there's no way around it, Nick. I mean, the Creed got sloppy with the snaps this year, and it kind of got worse as the year continued. I don't think it's a mental thing. I don't think it's a yips kind of thing, but there's something going on. And I mean, and part of me says that, hey, usually when it's a center that's snapping the ball low, I mean, it's usually because they're looking for something. I mean, they're trying to worry about something else. And I don't know what that is with Creed, but he's got to knock it off.
Well, and for Creed, I'm curious to see when he gets time away from the football field and when he comes back to OTAs next year in training camp, where are those snaps at that point? Because I can tell you from having snapped a football myself a long time ago, what can affect your snap is multiple things. Do you have an injury in your arm or your back that you're trying to play through or grit through? Then two, depending on who you're playing on the defensive line, what are they asking you to do blocking wise to where you have to get that snap out and try to step at the same time to be able to beat that defender who you're trying to reach block or you're trying to do this or that to. So, I mean, all those are in theory are possibilities for why the snaps got noticeably lower as time went on. Because there was an issue at times, but during I think middle part of the year, end of the year, you saw it start to get worse and worse, and then it bottomed out in the Super Bowl with how low the snaps were getting. and that leads me to believe that either something blocking assignment wise was he's trying to get both things accomplished, or his body wasn't 100%. That like that could cause some of that problem, and it may not even be something where where it's just you've got a sore muscle, and it's not something necessarily that has to you have to go get treatment for. You're just battling through type of thing.
All very excellent points. See, that's why we bring you in here, Nick, because you snapped a much more than I did. So, and
It's
I haven't.
it's hard, man. It is hard trying to long snapping just is a feel, but like when you see guys long snap, like it's got a certain feel to it, and there's a certain spin you're always trying to get, and there's a certain spot you have to hit whenever you're snapping and you have to have your legs at certain angles to be able to truly fully get the velocity you're wanting on that. And that long snapping is much harder because of how far back you have to kick that thing. While if you're just doing it from a center position and you're using one hand and having to snap that, like Chris Jones said after the game in the press conference, like he couldn't close his hand. Chris said that, and then I kind of wonder sometimes for Creed, with offensive linemen, I'm always amazed at centers and how they have to punch the entire time, and just what their hands maybe mash like. Because if you've ever seen Brian Baldinger on the NFL Network, like Brian still got that pinky going the opposite way from the rest of his hand, and like that, those guys, the wear and tear in their hands, man, over the years, like it's not pretty.
Not pretty at all. I am completely abusing you here, Nick, because you have already been to the grocery store. So thank you for letting me abuse you.
Hey, I'm here for you, okay? I'm here for all of you, especially
How?
you, Bobby. I
There you
saw the
go.
comments.
There you go. How much is Creed going to cost to keep? Excellent question. I haven't really looked at the top of the market, but I'm pulling it up now to see where the centers are, because obviously if you're going to sign Creed Humphrey, even though we are talking about the snap problems, which I think are absolutely
So Jason
fixable.
Kelsey's at the top of the market, average wise at 14.2. So I think you're easily going to have to pay Creed, depending on how many all pros and things of that nature. You're easily going to be paying him somewhere between 12 to 15, depending on what evaluations you have based on how many Pro Bowls they've been to, how many All Pros have they had, what's the expectation here or there. So yeah, because Corey Lindsey is he's truly one of the last guys, if I remember correctly, that really hit the open market. And I know that if I remember correctly, I think the Chiefs were checking in on him when he signed with the Chargers, and then the Chiefs ended up drafting Creed that year.
Well, and Jason Kelsey's deal is a little weird, and his last one was the 1 year extension that got him to 14.25. But then you go to number 2, Frank Ragnow is at 13.5, and then you go down to Eric McCoy at number 6 is at 12 on average. So yeah, I mean, 13.5, 14's probably where you're going to be with Creed. That's what I would certainly be asking for if I'm his agent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you get a hometown discount? I never count on it. Chiefs Kingdom, is it just me, or is Kelsey severely underpaid? Is he taking a hometown discount? Kelsey's always underpaid, let's face it. I mean, and even by tight end standards, he's still kind of underpaid.
Yeah, no, I can't dispute that. Yeah, Kelsey, could he make a lot more? Could he be in the $25 million range as a tight end, $20 million range? Yes, he could. But like he said many a times on there before, he understands how special the situation is he has here. And when he did the article, and if you're reading between the lines in the article he did this past year, part of it was he kept telling his management group and everything, yeah, how do we get more money? And then they're like, yes, the Chiefs. He's like, so how do we get more money? And he wasn't slamming the Chiefs. He's like, hey guys, I got you. I pay you to go find me other opportunities, and that's why Travis probably did a lot of commercials this year.
There you go. Whitey, not saying they should, but so we had this question essentially for the Chris Jones part of it. Could the Chiefs get a top 10 pick for L'Jarius Sneed?
I doubt it. Again, that's another thing that maybe you get a late round first for Sneed, but Teams are going to want to check out that knee and see where that knee is at, and then they're going to want to know what the number is. So in terms of top 10, I would be surprised. I'm not saying it couldn't be possible, but I just don't know if a team's wanting to give up. Again, I don't know if teams want to give up top 10 picks to also pay somebody top dollar per year.
Yeah, and I'll pair this with Darren's question here. Do you think 4 years, 72 is a good starting point for Snead? I mean, that'd be 18 mil. Yeah, I mean, that's where I think probably the market is. If I'm the Chiefs, I wouldn't start there. If I'm Legarius's agent, I would start there, if not a little north. But I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up there somewhere around. If the Chiefs were to sign Legarius, I mean, I think it's possible it could very well end up there. And then the big question is just how much is guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, let me see what that ends up averaging out to. People bringing in numbers. Only thing worse than this is word problems. So 18 per year on open market. I mean, yeah, that's what his agent's going to ask for. And then we'll have to figure out how much guaranteed wise from there in terms of what the other corners are making on the market right now. So now we'll pop up that. Let's see. Corner. So, okay, so top average right now is going to be 21 million. Let's see what the overall guarantee is. So Denzel Ward at 27 is making almost 20 per year and got 71 million guaranteed. Jalen Ramsey, 30 a year, or he's 30 years old, 20 a year. So yeah, so the top corner right now is getting 20 a year and 71 guaranteed. So you're gonna have to haggle back and forth with the agent on how much you're willing to do guaranteed per year. So I don't know. It'll be yeah, I mean that's definitely a starting point that I think he asked for. And you see how much you go one way or the other on that one.
Lost my window. Apologies. Darren wants to know if Willie is a tag and trade candidate. I would say no, because if anything, the linebacker cap number can be really, really screwy.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be a big number for Willie Gay.
So top 5, and it goes down almost a million per guy. So like Roquan's at the top at 20, Fred Warner's at 19, Edmonds is at 18, and Mosley's at 17. So just with those 4 guys combined, I mean, when you're taking that per average, you're going to be in between that, probably around that 17, 18 range when you add them all up and everything. So if you tag him, you're going to be at that number for him, when personally I'm mentally expecting Willie to be somewhere between 9 to 12 million if he hits the open market, depending on how much people really think that he can help their scheme and system.
And here's the screwy thing, Nick, and this is why it kind of gets it out of line and everything. Because I was looking to see what Joel Corey has at it, because you've got some edge rushers who are linebackers that get included in there. So
that's when that turns into a headache. At that point. Yeah, that bumps that up to at least 20 at that point, if not more.
So yeah, Joel Corey, who knows his stuff, has this year's projected tag for linebacker at 22.8.
Yeah, no, you're not doing that.
No, that's not doable.
I mean, they do take that outside
because I mean that becomes a starting point, and
yeah, no, that's a headache.
Yeah, you don't want that to be a starting point.
And I need people to understand that once you place that franchise tag, that is what you admit you're willing to pay for that player. Because like that now becomes the new starting point of what you're going to pay for that player.
Yeah. Because
you were willing to tag him at that. So that's what the new market is for everybody.
All right, Nick, I got your favorite question because it's the last one.
Okay.
Only because Mo Mats, we did talk about fixing Creed Humphrey snapping, so we kind of already answered that. But Steeman Demon, I'm going to try and make you happier here, Steeman, because I know I made you unhappy with the Kadarius Toney answer earlier. But will there be a large amount of college receivers headed to Dallas wanting to take part in Mahomes' preseason camp? And is the NFL going to stop that? So far, it's great that the NFL hasn't. because I would expect this is the year that they probably will, because I would expect that every college receiver is going to be begging for a invite to Mahomes passing camp.
Or there's going to be agents that are going to be like, hey, my client just happened to be in the area. Was wanting to know if you want to, he's training for
toss the ball around a little bit,
training for his pro day, and he would love to be able to experience what a Super Bowl winning NFL quarterback is like. Is that something, to use a phrase from Entourage, is that something you might be interested in?
Exactly.
Therese and I used to use that line with each other all the time as we both watch Entourage. And
there were so many times that I think that GIF would absolutely be appropriate, but I cannot use it because that was Therese's GIF.
But yeah, no, that was that. I am curious to see. The bigger question I have now is how many other teams or quarterbacks are gonna try that are in the market for receivers. How many other teams will try that?
And I'm interested in even the guys who aren't going to be on the Chiefs board, but want to go hang out with Mahomes and catch with Mahomes.
Well, and then on top of it just, if you're an agent and you put that out there and leak that out there to one of the national guys, like you're getting other teams to maybe be interested. You're raising the stock of your client, whether, like you said, whether they fit the characteristics on the Chiefs board or not. Then at that point, when it leaked out about Quentin Johnson and the Chargers made sure that they took him, and then the Ravens took Zay Flowers, and those were all above 32. So yeah, that's the thing. I know this sounds awful to say, but if there is a wide receiver that the Chiefs are genuinely interested in, and the client and the agent cares about his client, we will never find out about it till after the draft. And I'm being serious about that too. Like, if you do want to play with Mahomes, like you don't say anything, you don't put it on social media.
Yeah.
You tell your agent, hey, because Matt, we never found out about Rice until after the fact, right?
Right. We didn't.
That's the way it should be. And look how much that did for Rice. Rice won a Super Bowl in his rookie year. He's gonna have Mahomes thrown into him for the next 3 years. Got to play with potential Hall of Famers in Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid and coaching him. And he got to experience Steve Spagnuolo's defense on the other side. So that is the gain you get if you don't say anything.
But here's also the thing that I think is part of the game, which is that I think that and the Chiefs may already be doing this. Brett Veach may already be just miles ahead of us, which is that you let people know which receivers are working out with Mahomes that you're not interested in, so that teams will then think that you are interested in them. And I mean, there's nothing about this that I don't love, Nick. I mean, and you're right. I mean, that's why I'm almost thinking that if you hear that Mahomes is throwing with somebody this April, cross them off the list, because there's a reasonable chance that they're just there for window dressing. They're just there because, hey, Patrick will throw with anybody, and if you want to come on down and the Chiefs aren't interested in you, Brett Veach will probably send out the list to somebody to say, hey, here's a bunch of receivers that worked out with Patrick, and feel like, oh, the Chiefs are interested in this guy. The only way that can sometimes backfire is that if you're Brett Veach and you didn't want to make a trade with somebody, and that receiver that you don't want is out there, the team thinks that you're trading up to get that receiver, you might not now be able to get the trade up that you want to get the guy that you were actually trying to hide. Not that happened this spring or not, but
there are a lot of angles, man. There are a lot of
the NFL is crazy sometimes, Nick. It's absolutely crazy. But if I got a tight end, I want to send it out there too, Nick.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see what they do.
And I don't see how the NFL can fix it. Or I mean, that needs to be fixed, but I mean, other teams can be doing it too. So there's no reason why. I mean, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, all these guys could be doing it. Joe Burrow, if his arms, when he's healthy, I mean, he could be doing it too.
That's where I'm intrigued down the road here. How many teams do it? How does it get leaked out? And then hypothetically, say there's one of the top prospects out there. I'm not going to name names because then it gets associated, but say there's a top prospect out there receiver wise, and he's a top 10 pick that's been asked about on here, and he magically goes and catches with 5 elite quarterbacks, then is that where the NFL is fine? Like, all right, we're not turning this into this, and then they end up coming up with some rule that's part of the competition committee or something of that nature, and then they close that down, and then, or does it get to a point where the workouts are happening in such secrecy at places that make them open to something legally that could cause problems as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's actually not unusual because a lot of draft picks go and train at facilities that other NFL players train. So, right. I mean, a lot of guys have worked out together. It's just that this has never happened before because normally in April, quarterbacks are at their facility doing OTAs and they're not going to be having draft prospects coming in, but Mahomes can do that because he's down in Texas, because the Chiefs don't have everybody come up for OTAs anymore because they're in the playoffs until mid-February. And Andy's like, yeah, we can just meet on Zoom and everything, and you guys work on your own, and you can stay home and relax and rest up because you need to recuperate. I mean, that's the reason why the Chiefs were able to do it, because everybody else is in their facilities doing OTAs or off-season workouts before OTAs start. They're doing off-season workouts, and the Chiefs are the only team that's saying, let's meet virtually. You guys work out on your own. Pat, take your skill players and go do whatever you want to, and it's not under our watch. I mean, the only thing that can ever screw this up, Nick, is that somebody's going to get hurt, and then there's going to be an NFLPA grievance.
Matt, let's not put that out there in the universe, even though.
Oh, sorry, I just jinxed it. Sorry.
That's why I hinted and said if there was a legal issue down the road, but I didn't specify on it.
Well, I decided to skip. I decided to say
it up.
I said the quiet part out loud. Sorry, Nick. I was thinking more of a tampering. It was the last call because it was the last question. We just talked about it for 15 minutes. So
well, I'm saying this is your chance to do a last call with anybody. Get their final questions in before I go on Twitter and start putting up coaches film stuff.
Hey, I'm going to give the shout out to KC Harold here because KC Harold is a member, so members get their shout outs. So see, I mean, wasn't there something satisfying about Elway having to bring the trophy up to the Chiefs? There was a lot of kind of karma about this Super Bowl and everything. I mean, the 4 Raiders having the 49ers and the Chiefs logos on their building had to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Elway bringing the trophy out had to hurt.
Or Max Crosby having to be on NFL Network in the stadium that he plays in, attending a Super Bowl that he's not playing in against the quarterback that is one of the reasons he is going to have a tough road getting there to a Super Bowl. Like that had to be a little bothersome. But like you said, here's the other part that people haven't really talked about. And nobody's put it all together, but we're going to do it right here, right now. We're going to put the string theory together on it.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Okay.
But I'm not gonna.
John Elway in the Raider Stadium, another guy who's won 2 Super Bowls, is walking through the Chiefs line for Super Bowl 58 of the franchise where Derrick Thomas, who was number 58, used to terrorize John Elway. And he's having to hand it off to that franchise. Like, I don't know. That was something that I thought about that. I'm like, oh, man. Super Bowl 58, he's having to hand a trophy off to the organization of a guy who wore 58 that just terrorized Elway for a decade.
That is not where I thought you were going to go, but that is beautiful. That
where
is
did you
more.
think I was going to go, Matt? Now I'm curious.
Well, we were talking about Max Crosby and being on NFL Network, and I did hear what Max Crosby had to say about Mahomes, and it did sound to me a lot like Max Crosby is a guy who wouldn't mind playing with Patrick Mahomes one day.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. That's why I was surprised when he took the big contract like he did, because he was getting close to free agency a year or 2 ago. When he did it, I was like, man, I wouldn't have done that if I were you. I would have forced him to tag you twice and then get the heck out of there and go play. But yeah, no, I agree 100%. Like if Crosby ever gets the chance to go play with Mahomes and play with the Chiefs, I have no doubt in my mind that he would do that in a second, because I don't think people understand just like how much respect and how highly he talks to Mahomes when they're not playing each other and pressers and everything. I have no doubt that like he would do that in a second if the opportunity ever came up.
Yeah, the planting of the flag was a pretty good one too. I think Malik Herring planted the flag as well, if I'm not mistaken. So there were definitely some flags being planted at Allegiant.
Yeah, that's true too. I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
Well, Luttrell has noted that we actually, and technically speaking by the counter, we are 22 seconds away from 2 hours. So I don't want to get credit for something we haven't done yet. But Nick, you are so kind. Thank you for once again coming in and spending your free time with us.
hey, it's my pleasure. And as I will remind you once again, tomorrow is in fact parade day. And if you are not in Kansas City, and by not in Kansas City, I mean you're not physically going to be at the parade, you can watch the coverage on KSHB 41 on our mobile apps, on the website, on the Roku app that we have, all the apps that we have. You can watch it on your cell phone in many different ways, and you will be able to see the parade. And KSHB 41 is inside the guardrails that are going to be keeping fans from, from being on the street where the buses are and everything. Coverage starts at 4:30 in the morning. Parade starts at 11. KSHB 41 will have it nonstop from 4:30 till, I can't remember if it goes till 3, maybe. I can't remember, maybe even longer. But yeah, if you want to see it, KSHB 41 is going to have a heck of a production for it. And no matter what state you're in, you'll be able to watch it if you want to. And
I thought when you said state, I thought you were talking about like Jalen Watson last year in the state he was in. I don't think he could have watched it.
That is a different state than what I was talking about. I was talking like there are people that actually last year, if I remember correctly, there were people that were watching our stream from Australia.
But
you're thankful for that.
But you're saying like Steam and Demon and Cards Casey Forever, who's up in Iowa, can watch it online.
Run that by me again, because I'm what's up?
Like Steam and Demon, not in Kansas City, but can stream your coverage online.
Yeah, you can stream our coverage online. You can stream it on our apps. So like, just KSHB 41 is going to have the parade, man. We're going to have it, and we're going to have it. And I'm just telling you, you don't even need a TV to watch it.
That is fantastic.
You can have a mobile phone to be able to watch it if you want to. So Steam and Demon, you can watch KSHB 41 on the intrawebs and be able to see the coverage, and the apps will have it too. And I checked them last year, so they worked perfectly. And
I know you guys have I know you have a Roku app. I'm sure you have a Fire TV app. So don't even have to watch it on your computer. You can stream it on your TV.
Yes. Streaming is probably the best way to say that. Yeah, you can, the parade, whether it's on KSHB.com or like I said, our app, because search KSHB 41 app. I know we have that too. And that's how a lot of people watched it last year. And that's how a lot of people watched it in 2019 too, if I remember correctly, when we had that parade. And I'm telling you, we got cameras all across the entire thing. I can't give away competitive strategy if another station in town's watching, but I just want you to know, like, this is going to be the third year of doing it. I've seen how we've done it, and we crush it on a regular basis.
You guys do. I mean, and the inside access is what makes it really, really cool. So, I like I said, I'll be watching it because there's no special media availability or access. So, unfortunately, it's impossible to hear the speeches really well if you're trying to write about them and report about them if you're in person. So, for me, both fortunately and unfortunately, makes a lot more sense for me to be at home watching your excellent coverage because I can hear every single word crisply and clearly.
Even when they're getting off the buses, the high five fans and
exactly,
and they want to talk to one of the reporters,
and you can see everything, not just where you are, and then in the pile of people. So that's what I'm trying to discourage people from going to the parade. But your coverage is great.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I mean, I know there's a lot of out of state people that like really want to be able to experience it, and this still allows you to experience that. So I'm just telling you, there's a lot of work that went into this. Like people that weren't on earlier, we had a Zoom call earlier today, and I saw that I got off the Andy Reid press conference after that got done today, and then hopped on the Zoom for our parade coverage and just hearing everything and how many people we had on that are going to be a part of it. It was, I don't think people know how much it takes to put something like that together, and like how much resource wise and everything, but just know that everybody KSHB 41 knows what this is, knows how special this is, and we put everything we can into it resource wise to make it phenomenal for you to watch at home and to feel like you got, honestly, in some ways, even a better experience watching on KSHB 41 than if you were, if you weren't specifically at Union Station when they get there and do the and do the overhead talk from the stage.
That is beautiful. You know what, Nick? That sounds like something I would be interested in.
Yes. And I saw. Well, I'm reading the comment where Steam and Demon's asking, like, I don't know that part of it. I just know we're streaming it. So
I don't remember that for sure either. I don't know if you're not watching live if you can replay it, but I imagine that you guys will also post it. So
yeah, I'm not. I don't know, because I'm just thinking that from a file size perspective, what that's going to end up being for that.
Well, there's that. That's true too. You might have to read in several parts if it gets posted.
You guys have a lot of great questions, and I don't have any answers to on that. All I can tell you is it'll be on KSHB 41. We will be streaming it. You can watch it if you're even if you're not in Kansas City.
There you go. All right. Well, Nick, thank you once again for coming in and joining me tonight and joining all of us. Everybody, thank you for the great questions. It was a great conversation tonight, to the point where, yes, Nick and I prattled on for 2 hours because we liked the questions enough that we kept on going, and we pontificated on quite a few answers. So,
yeah, and I'm pulling this up. I'll throw this on here real quick for people asking questions. Matt, you feel free, keep rolling. I'm copying this in and throwing this in the chat.
There you go.
It won't let me send. Okay.
Send. We need it, Nick.
No, it won't let me do it.
On interwebs.
It won't. I want to learn more.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you were able to send it to me, I can post it up.
Okay.
And put it on the YouTube page. So
let's see if that works. Does that work? I hit it in the private chat if that works.
Oh, I got you. Yes. I see it.
It'll let me say words that form sentences on here.
I was going to say, will it let me post it?
I hope
I may have special powers.
Nah. Well, I mean, you are the host of this thing. Look at that right there.
There you go.
There's the frequently asked questions article we have.
So there is the link. Yes, you can copy and paste it. Won't post the link, but you can copy and paste the link there, and we'll even, specify. Well, I guess it's self-explanatory. It just says it right there. Chiefs Champions Parade frequently asked questions. Boom.
No.
Well, there you go. I think we've done it all here. We can, Nick. We've caused as much trouble as we possibly can, but we have more trouble ahead because Nick and I have got some really cool stuff in the next few weeks, leading up to free agency, the beginning of the new league year, the draft, all that fun stuff. So we will keep you apprised and let you know, and we will be back here next Tuesday. I don't know if we'll have anything else live planned this week, but Nick and I will also have KSHB is 41 is the Mike's podcast over the weekend. Maybe even earlier, depending if we get a wild hair or not.
Yeah, I mean, you'll definitely, we'll see where our schedules are for taping it, and then, we'll release it at a consistent time for people on a regular basis so they know that it'll always be there for them on that specific day.
There you go. That is right. Well, that's all I've got. So, Nick, unless you've got any parting thoughts.
Until next time, I bid you adieu.